The Master Improvisator versus the Monster Forehand. I just watched the best match by far of the 2025 Indian Wells Masters 1000. And this match was Daniil Medvedev versus Arthur Fils. A few days ago, I posted a story on my Instagram and I said that Fils can do a tremendous amount of damage during the clay court season. And I got a lot of DMs, people agreeing with me. These people watched him play live in Indian Wells and they said that he was absolutely cracking the ball. And Fils has one of the best, if not the best, topspin forehand on the whole planet. It reminds me somewhat of Nadal. Yes, I said it. It is unbelievably heavy. The crack that comes out of his forehand, the sound of it is incredible. Now, why does the Fils forehand have more spin than some of the other players? Well, first of all, very similar to Nadal, his swing path is more steep. So when I talk about heavy topspin, I often will draw a diagonal line in front of the player. And when you look at players like Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic, the racket follows along this diagonal line when you're viewing the player from the side as they're hitting in a circular motion across the body. This is true for the vast majority of players that hit a heavy topspin forehand. However, when I analyzed the Fils forehand, this diagonal line was more steep, so his swing path is more steep compared to the other players. Now, generally, when the swing path is steep, this doesn't necessarily result in a better forehand because often more spin means less power. But this was never the case for Rafael Nadal, and this is definitely not the case for Fils because not only does he get a tremendous amount of spin, he can crack that forehand unbelievably hard. So he has that unbelievable combination of spin and power. Why does he have power? I think he's an incredibly talented player. I saw him play in juniors and he just naturally hits the ball incredibly hard, but he's also packed on some muscle. He looks a lot stronger than he did in juniors, and he's a very strong, talented guy. And I'm going to say something that I would never think that I would say. And I think finally France has a player that has a legitimate chance to win the French Open. Now, I know it's unlikely that Fils is going to do it. But if you take all the French players over the last 10, maybe 20 years, I think Fils has the best chance. It's still going to be unbelievably difficult to do it, but his game translates the best for the clay court. His forehand has massive topspin, but it's not only that. He also has a massive kick serve. He moves exceptionally well. He has a strong backhand. The only thing that, in my opinion, is holding him back is his attitude. Very similar to some other young players, I think that his attitude could improve. In other words, his mental game could get a little bit sharper. And once that happens, I think, again, Fils can win the French Open. It sounds crazy, but I do believe it. Now, the tournament Indian Wells is so interesting because it's a hard court tournament in the United States, but players who perform really well on clay do really well at Indian Wells. You guys remember for sure that Rafa won Indian Wells a bunch of times. Iga is incredibly good at Indian Wells. She is blazing through the draw. She found her form. So why do clay court players do so well at Indian Wells? Well, one reason is the surface. It's a gritty surface with a high bounce. I analyzed the Djokovic Van de Zandschulp match, and Djokovic was complaining that the ball was bouncing unbelievably high on the stadium court. But it's not only that. Indian Wells also happens to be one of the windiest tournament. In the match today between Fils and Medvedev, it was so windy that the fridge where they hold the drinks was blown away. That's how windy it was. And the type of players that perform well in the wind are players who also tend to perform well on clay. It is the players that have a little bit more spin on their shots. Players that move really well are going to do better in the wind. But players who have good improvisational skills are also going to do really well at Indian Wells. And this brings me to Daniil Medvedev, who is a two-time Indian Wells finalist, and he has found his form. He's been playing below his normal level in 2025, losing to a lot of players that he normally shouldn't lose to. These are matches that Medvedev normally wins. And what happens nowadays on social media is that as soon as a player gets on a losing streak, people say, this guy is done, it's over for him. But I'm happy to see that Medvedev is back. And he was very happy to win this match against a very difficult opponent. If you saw the celebration after the match point, I haven't seen Medvedev so happy in a long time. But let's get back to the windy conditions. Who has the best ball control in the history of tennis? Well, according to Rafael Nadal, that's Novak Djokovic, who also won Indian Wells a bunch of times. And what is Novak Djokovic known for? Well, he's the master improvisator. He can put his body in incredible positions to be able to control the ball. He's very flexible. Some people will say he's got a very elastic body. But another guy that has this skill, the ability to improvise and correct balls that are out of his strike zone, well, that's Daniil Medvedev. And we've seen so many funny clips of Daniil Medvedev trying to correct his shots that were outside of the strike zone. He has really funky technique when he does that. But Daniil Medvedev, somewhat similar to Djokovic, has exceptional ball control. He can keep that ball and play forever. And I think the main reason why Medvedev does so well in Indian Wells is that he is one of the best wind players on planet Earth because of his improvisational skills. And the third set between Fils and Medvedev was so entertaining. It was very much a roller coaster. Medvedev broke Fils at 1-all, and Fils broke right back. Then Fils went up 4-2. Medvedev came back, and Medvedev ended up winning the tiebreak 9-7. Super entertaining match. I did feel that overall Fils was the better player in this match, but Medvedev played well. He got away with it by winning the important points. And based on the celebration after the match point, Daniil was very happy to make it out of this one. Fils is a player to look out for once we hit the clay court season. I think he's going to do a tremendous amount of damage if he can hold it together mentally. Another player that's playing a lot better this week is Holger Rune. He is in the semifinal of a Masters 1000. He's going to play Medvedev. This is going to be a tough match. And interestingly, these guys played each other last year at Indian Wells with Medvedev winning in straight sets. The head-to-head is 2-1 for Medvedev. Rune got him the first time they played in Monte Carlo, and then Medvedev won the next match in Rome. And like I said, he beat him last year at Indian Wells. So I'm predicting Medvedev coming through this match. It might be a tough one, but overall, with these conditions, I do foresee that Alcaraz is going to win this tournament. How crazy is it that Alcaraz lost to Dimitrov last year in Miami in straight sets, and yesterday he beats him 1-1. This is an incredible discrepancy in result. Dimitrov is a phenomenal player, highly capable of playing on that high bouncing Indian Wells surface, but this particular surface suits Carlos Alcaraz incredibly well. Currently, he is the best clay court player in the world. And if we're going to compare Indian Wells to clay, as far as the bounce is concerned, Carlos Alcaraz is the best player at Indian Wells. And I do believe that he's going to win this year, and he's going to win many more Indian Wells titles in the coming years.